Hello, welcome back to Celebrity Death Roulette, the Wheel of Misfortune. This episode is number 13, and by now you know the drill. 10 random names. I have no idea who they are. I cannot study ahead of time. This is all dependent on whatever I can recall in my brain. So 2 minutes, 10 subjects, and I guess there's no need for delay. So off we go. Clara Peller. Well, Clara Peller was the woman who was very popular from the "Where's the Beef" ads in the Wendy's burger restaurants. That was in the early 80s, I think. And I remember that she used to be a manicurist at the Belmont Hotel in Chicago, Belmont and Lakeshore Drive. I don't know for sure how they found her. She must have auditioned. I don't think she was an actress at all, but she was a manicurist there. And I've been to her house too. And it wasn't anywhere near there, but it was probably an easy bus ride to get there. So she did the hard of hearing woman saying, "Where's the beef?" in the Wendy's commercial. And I remember that they fired her from doing the Wendy's commercials because she did a commercial for spaghetti sauce, and they gave her the slogan, "Oh, here's the beef," or something like that. And Wendy's fired her because why imply that you could find the beef anywhere else than in a Wendy's hamburger. And I think she did it again in a McDonald's commercial later on as a spoof when they were doing those retro commercials, like with the Beverly Hillbillies and stuff like that. But I remember going to her house, and I remember going to her grave, and I'm not sure if she's buried in the same cemetery that John Belushi's cenotaph is, where the Belushi family grave is, but that I remember. The Belmont Hotel, manicurist, commercial, something about a daughter. I can't remember exactly what it was about the daughter, but I have a picture on findadeath of her mailbox, that I remember. And somebody else went there on a YouTube video. Where they got the information, I'll never know. And the mailbox is gone, I believe. So that's what I have. Where's the beef, lady? Clara Peller. She seemed likable. I would love to have met her. That would have been fun. Freddie Prinze. If I'm not mistaken, he was Chicago as well. Chicano. And I think it's where he came from at the time he got the show Chico and the Man. And God, he was only 24. He came out of nowhere. I remember that. He all of a sudden, I know he was a comedian, I guess, and I wasn't aware of him until Chico and the Man happened with Jack Albertson. But he became a huge star and got involved with drugs and got involved with doing blow. And I've always heard that he screwed up his nose so much that he did cocaine, through his rear end. Which is not impossible if you look at it. And people, it doesn't surprise me one bit that people, I don't know about him, but people can do that or do that because it works faster too. It's like when people give themselves wine enemas. So, but Freddie Prinze, very sad person. Freddie Prinze Jr., his son, who played Freddie in the Scooby-Doo live-action movies, I think he wasn't even born yet when Freddie Prinze killed himself at the hotel on Wilshire Boulevard, the Comstock Hotel. And who was one of his customers? Was it Sinatra? Oh, I was just reading that, or Pee Wee Herman, somebody really unusual. It was like a maitre d' at that restaurant where Freddie Prinze had an apartment. And Freddie Prinze, I guess, was going to had the gun and was going to do it, and his agent was in the same room with them and dove for him to get him to stop it, and then he did it in front of the agent. But gosh, something about a maitre d' at that place. Was it Pee Wee? I saved the article too. It was something really unusual. Someone that you wouldn't expect knew him at that hotel, the Comstock Hotel. God, Amy Winehouse. Gosh, I wish I knew more about Amy Winehouse. She was one of those people that came about after me, like after I sort of, the music industry kind of passed me by. And of course, very talented. We watched a documentary about her, the made-for-TV movie about her not that long ago, and it was okay. I like her okay. I only can tell you 2 or 3 songs of hers. She interested me because of her hairdo, because it's very 60s, and she did embrace that sort of, that kind of look. And I also know that she was a mess, another one that was into drugs big time, but she did it on a very public level. And I remember her making the news, the tabloids, because of her, being so out of it, and clearly not only alcohol. And I remember she used to wear ballet slippers, and she used to shoot up between her toes, and you could tell in the ballet slippers because there was blood on them, so you could tell that's what she was doing. I guess she hooked up with the wrong guy. I forget what his name was, but she hooked up with the wrong guys, period. And she was in Camden. She lived in Camden in London, a little bit north, near his Black Horse, a pub I used to go to with Regina Fong, who used to perform there. And my friend, I can't say her name, went there after Amy died, and Amy's car was still parked out in front, and my friend got pictures of the inside of Amy's car, and those are on Findadeath too. And there was Diet Cokes and ballet slippers and on her car, or on the floor of her car, and they put a big statue of her over, and the Rehab song, of course, and her duets album, of course, or she was one of the people who did duets with Tony Bennett, I think. But I mean, I liked her. She was really talented, and they put a big statue of her in Camden, which is pretty big. I mean, that's something. Poor Amy. Who do we have? Joe DiMaggio? Okay, well, I knew him first off from the song Mrs. Robinson, where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Which I guess he didn't even understand because I didn't go anywhere. But he was in my realm. I know he was a huge baseball star for the New York Yankees. And he had no sense of humor. He was married to Marilyn Monroe. I don't think he could deal with being Mr. Marilyn. That was, I think, the big problem, because Joe DiMaggio was a big deal, and Marilyn was a bigger deal. And no matter where they went, they were always going to shove him aside to get to Marilyn Monroe. That was just, and I think he just couldn't deal with that at all. But to his credit, he never ever spoke out about her, ever, I don't think. And they say the last words were, "I'm going to be with Marilyn," which I don't think is true. But I did meet him once in Detroit. He was doing a shopping mall appearance for Mr. Coffee. When Mr. Coffee first came out, he was their spokesperson. Like, it was the first electric coffee maker that everyone had. And but I don't think he ever did any interviews about Marilyn. I know my buddy Steve, when he was writing a book about the Abbott and Costello, I think Joe was friends with Bud Abbott, and he got to talk about, chased Joe down somewhere and got him on the phone for a second and talked a little bit about Bud Abbott. I think it was Bud, not Luke Costello, but wouldn't talk about Marilyn at all. To his credit, he never trashed her, it was never a tell-all. But I don't think he had any sense of humor. I know that he's buried in Colma, California, I believe. Maybe the same cemetery as Abigail Folger. And Joltin' Joe has left and gone away. You know, he was a baseball legend. I mean, he had a restaurant, or someone who owned his name, or leased his name out, called DiMaggio's up in San Francisco. We ate in that restaurant. Dodo Denny. Oh no. Dodo Denny. That I wish my friend Mark was here, because he would be able to go on and on about Dodo Denny. But she played Mike Teavee's mother in Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder movie. And she was one of those people that was on a ton of shows back in the 60s. I can only name Bewitched. that's what I know that she was on as a, one of those character actresses. I hate that term because every actress is a character actress, but one of those people that were around in the 60s and probably the 50s and the 70s, 60s and 70s, that showed up probably in every television program at the time. But I remember from Bewitched, I remember her from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I think she was a teacher in that movie because I think when they were licking the wallpaper, which is really it's really disturbing if you watch the licking the wallpaper that was flavored. Look at Jack Albertson's tongue. It's really, really creepy. And I think he said the strawberries taste like strawberries, the something, and he says the snozberries taste like snozberries. It's like, I'm a teacher and there is no such thing as a snozberry. I believe that's how that went down. And he said something like the Oompa Loompa is not going to like what you have to say about that. So I'm stretching because she's kind of like Alice Ghostly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she and Alice Ghostly were up for parts together. And a lot of those actresses were on Bewitched back in the day. She's probably on Nanny and the Professor. She's probably on all those shows. But boy, like a mother, just like, oh geez, stretching. But watch for Jack Albertson's tongue in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they're licking the wallpaper. It's super disturbing, and we love Dodo Denny. That was tough. Dodo Denny, of all people. Oh, Linda Darnell, geez, another one that I know so little about Linda Darnell's career. She was in movies. It was like Flaming Embers, I think was one of them. I know she was in a couple of movies that had like fiery, literally fire in the title, something Embers and something like Burning. And that was the ironic thing because she died in a fire, and she died outside of Chicago. And a few years ago, my friend Bun and I went to that house where she burned in a fire, and I was taking pictures of the outside of it. And I was, Bun and I were talking about what happened there, and the neighbor came out. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're doing this research on Linda Darnell." And he says, "Well, I was here that day." And he explained how they brought her body out of the door, and she was smoking, and somebody caught on film, the cigarette burning, and I think she had a shovel or something that she broke the window, and that's what caused the fire to really explode, and that's what killed her. And he told me that she was upstairs asleep and she smelled smoke and went downstairs because there was cash on the table or something like that. She went down to get the cash, and that's where the fire was started from a cigarette left in an ashtray down there. And if they'd gone out the upstairs window, I think there might have been a girl in that house too that she was babysitting. This was a friend's house, and if they'd gone out that window, I think the girl may have, they would have lived, but she wanted to go downstairs and get the money. And they took her to a burn center down in Chicago, downtown Chicago, and that's where she died. And she was, I don't even remember where she's buried, to be honest with you. I don't know. But I did a TikTok video on her, and it's weird because that got the most hits of all was Linda Darnell. I know her funeral was here in San Fernando Valley. I know that. So, the fiery actress. I remember writing that story. Wendy Jo Sperber. Is she the one? No, that was Gilda Radner. That she did. I keep thinking it was Wendy Jo Sperber when she was on Saturday Night Live when Gilda Radner did that thing about playing the French horn is my way of coping with the grim reality of prison life. For some reason, it reminds me of Wendy Jo Sperber. But I like Wendy Jo because I loved a movie, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and that was a movie that was made about the Beatles coming to America, and she and Eddie Deason and the other actress who was the one that got her face sliced up by a crazy fan, what was her name? But they played obsessed Beatles fans who were like trying to get into the Beatles hotel room where they were staying in New York for the first time. That was a really fun movie. And Eddie Deason, who played Eugene in Grease, he's a friend, it's a Facebook friend, and we've corresponded a few times. And he helped me with a video actually that I did on Dennis Stewart from Grease. and he just said she was, only people only have nice things to say about her. But they were the ones that were stealing Beatles bed sheets from the hotel and chopping them up into quarter, little inch square slices and selling them. And I have one of those, actually. I think I have Ringo's or something like that. I did a video about that hotel because they did that really at the Whittier Hotel in Detroit. And I brought one of those back to the hotel and did a story about that. But Wendy died of cancer. I know that she's buried somewhere because I've seen photographs of her. Teresa Saldana, that was the name of the woman who was slashed by an obsessed fan who came to her door. And some water guy who was delivering like bottles of water threw one of those giant water bottles at him, and he got away, but they convicted him. And he was still sending horrible letters to her while in prison. It was nuts because they didn't have any stalking laws back then. But anyway, Wendy Jo Sperber, go watch that movie. It was so good. I Want to Hold Your Hand. I love that movie. Alexander Goodenough. Well, he was from the Soviet Union, Russia, you would say, and he was a ballet artist. He was, I think he defected to, claimed asylum when they were touring America. I think that's how he got into America. He claimed asylum, I believe. And gosh, something tells me he was like pals with Roman Polanski or something like that. But I do know that he was dating Jacqueline Bisset for a long time. He played the nasty ex-husband. Was that Money Pit? I think that one with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long. He played the bad guy. I think he was an orchestra leader or something like that. And he was a drinker, big time drinker, like pass out kind of stuff. And he lived in that building behind what was Tower Records on not Larrabee Street, but Cole Street. I think it is behind the old Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard. The same building that Diane Linkletter jumped from, and where Liza Minnelli lives and Neil Sedaka lives. And he died of an alcohol overdose, I believe, in that apartment building. And I had talked to the guy who had the liquor store down at the corner, which was next to the Viper Room. Actually, that's going to be destroyed soon. And he told me that Alexander Goodenough, he was a great customer of ours, which I thought was kind of funny. Wasn't he in a Nosferatu? Wasn't he in a remake of Nosferatu in the 70s? But he played a real jerk of an ex-husband, and I think it was Money Pit with Shelley Long. It makes sense. But yeah, he died very young, and I believe it was alcohol poisoning. He just overdosed on booze. I think so. And yeah. I'm not too bad at this today. I'm doing okay. Dodo was hard. Yvonne DiCarlo. Yvonne DiCarlo, of course, everyone knows her as Lily Munster. And I know that she was like an exotic dancer, not an erotic dancer, but an exotic dancer at the Florentine Gardens on Hollywood Boulevard. I think she was in the movie called Salome, the one that Gloria Swanson was going to do in Sunset Boulevard. But she was in like the original one during, pre-Sunset Boulevard. And she used to be an exotic dancer at this place, and I believe she worked with Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. I'm pretty sure, because I know that she worked at the, as far as I know, somebody's gonna come out and say, no, she didn't, she never did. But I always understood that Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, worked there too at the Florentine Gardens. And she became a household name, of course, as Lily Munster. And I remember she used to say that Marlon Brando, she was friends with Marlon Brando, who came to the set. I think she said that wig was like 30 pounds of hair that she had to carry around on her, so her neck was sore all the time. And even though that show only ran for like 2 seasons, it was one that they could never shake. I wrote her actually a nice fan letter, and I got a nice response from her as well, a nice autographed picture from her. And I know that she died at the Motion Picture Country Home. I know that one of her teeth was for sale recently, up for auction. I would have liked some kind of dental piece, and I would have loved that. But of course, those things go for crazy money nowadays. And something about her son who goes to those autograph shows, or used to, and was selling all her clothes and stuff like that at those autograph shows. But she said something when she was dying. Her last words were something really unusual. And I know I wrote about it on Findadeath. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I know that her star is right underneath the Fonda Theater, which is where there was a murder actually right on her star practically a few years ago. Somebody got murdered in Yvonne. Bobby Hatfield. Well, okay, of the Righteous Brothers, one of the Righteous Brothers, and Bobby Hatfield. I don't know his musical history. I know that he, along with Bill Medley, and I think Phil Spector produced those songs, the Righteous Brothers, and I think Cher did sing background on "You Lost That Love and Feeling." And it was like one of her, because Sonny Bono and Phil Spector were tight, and in music production back then, the whole Wall of Sound, the Ronettes. In fact, Cher sang on "Be My Baby" as well. I think that was her very first song that she ever sang on, though she never got credit for that. That part of her book was interesting, Cher's book. You could skip the first 5 chapters. It's all about her mother. But Cher's, after that, it's quite good. But Bobby Hatfield and Bill Medley were still touring. I don't know who was hitting the high notes because I don't think they could anymore. And I know that he died in Kalamazoo, Michigan in a hotel, and he died of a cocaine overdose. And I know my friend Kim Gate got me his memorial folder from his memorial service, which I think he's buried here. I think he's down in Orange County or something, but from his memorial I have his brochure, pamphlet or something like that. And Bill Medley, the Righteous Brother, still tours as the Righteous Brothers, even though he's the only one left, and God bless him. I mean, why not? But I think Bobby Hatfield, I think there's more of that, but I know that he died after a show in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I think he's buried here and Bill Medley, I've had the time of my life. I think it was his big hit. And I think he had another one after that as well. But I don't think I could identify Bobby Hatfield's voice. Could you? I don't think I could. But yeah, Bobby Hatfield. I can say that name over. Oh, that's it. Well, all right, I did. Okay, there were some zingers in there. I'll say that, but it's fun. I hope. Hope you enjoyed that little journey down Dead Celebrity Lane. Until next time, I guess this is number 13, and stay tuned for number 14 fairly soon. Thank you.
You heard me.